Harvest isn't easy. Long hours, heavy loads, hard miles. But the work doesn't stop when the crop comes out. At Landis, we know next year's harvest is already in the making. It starts with choosing the right seed. It builds with acreage inputs that push your crop further. And it stays sharp with Sky Scout technology that finds issues before they cost you bushels. This isn't chance, it's planning, and it's what we do together. Talk to your Landis advisor or stop at your local Landis location today, and let's get next season started.
Welcome to Farm Here Daily, a Field Forward podcast. I'm your host, David Geiger. Today on Farm Here Daily, we take a look at the latest market developments in corn and beans with Reese Drenth of the Ground Level Dispatch, going over harvest results and Chinese demand. Please be sure to like and follow the podcast as well as our social media at Field Forward Pod. We would love to have you join our community, keeping folks informed about what is affecting our farmers. This is Farm Here Daily. And joining me on Farm Here Daily, we're going to take a look at the state of the markets with Reese Drenth of the Ground Level Dispatch. Reese, always good to have you on the program. Thanks for joining again. And let's just talk about the elephant in the room, and that is we are harvesting right now, and we're getting some yield results, and we are starting to have some impacts of that. What seems to be what you're hearing in terms of yields and how that's affecting the markets?
Yeah, thanks for having us. As always, a pleasure to be here. Corn yield didn't, bean harvest for the most part, we're going to say is over. Guys have pretty much switched to corn here over the weekend, the last couple of days. There might be a few stragglers, but the market's focused on corn. I've had a few conversations with traders in the marketplace today for a couple larger grain companies. And what they've given me or what they've asked me, since we deal with a handful of farmers here, is like, hey, are the corn yields there? And the reason why they're asking that is because the receipts, the line at the elevator, the line at the processing plant isn't as long as what they think it should be by now. I mean, we have gotten some rain, right? But, maybe over the weekend or maybe earlier this week before the rain fell, the lines just haven't been as long. The harvest pace hasn't been as much. So when that happens, traders in particular start to get nervous about like, what's my take going to be? And for what it's worth, we do think through the grapevine, we've heard that, many elevators in particular did not take what they thought they're going to take on beans, even though yields were big. So that's a conversation for another time. Did the farmer store or the yields there? We think it's probably some of both. But for the corn side of things, which we'll focus on now, there's some concern out there. The yield's not there. And, we've talked about a lot with you, David. I mean, what we're hearing is that yields are very, very variable. And also, back to beans for a little bit, we know that the farmer did sell a lot more beans of the receipts that they did take to town than what we thought. And so maybe, the thought is like, we're going to sell the beans, pay off some debt, pay some bills, and store corn. So that could be one reason why, the lines aren't as long as the elevators, because we're going to store corn now that we sold beans. That could be one reason. The other, obviously, like we just said, is yields are variable. And so, when there is concern that the corn yield might not be there, that starts to get, the market restless a little bit too. And, the fact that the government obviously hasn't opened and can't give us some data on harvest progress. And, we didn't get the October WASDE report for a look at yields. And will we get the November one? All these things, right? Unknown is worth more than known. And so, today it was good to see some green on the board. Corn was up as high as 5 cents per bushel, closed up, closer to 4 cents a bushel. Beans were down early. They came back to about unchanged for the day. Like, you do have this a little bit of momentum here. It's like, oh man, where's the corn yield? And so we've talked about that a little bit in our evening comments the last couple of days, and we'd stress that again. Like, we're not going to know what the final corn yield is until January, but there is enough momentum, right? Again, tied to this narrative of the variability of corn yields, that like we could see some bullish upside here. Where we get to, who knows, but could see some support. Let's put it that way. Just because either there's enough corn going home, or there's enough variability in the corn yield, or some of both, to where it could get some of the bears concerned. Not necessarily the bulls excited, but the bears concerned, if that makes sense. That again, is this big crop that we thought we had there or not? So long-winded answer, but overall constructive for the corn market. And, hopefully we continue to see that kind of momentum while there's a lot of other negative stuff going on.
Absolutely. And the impact on corn is seen through that. The impact on soybeans is also in another commonly talked about topic, and it just seems like we keep getting more of the same type of news of spats between the US and China. What seems to be the update there? Has there been any developments from a market or commodities trading standpoint?
Yeah. So what's important to understand here about what's happened the last 5 days and maybe 7 days. Way back this spring, early summer, this concept of port fees made its way into the news cycle. Okay, and basically, short story long, the U.S. isn't happy that the Chinese dominate global cargo ship markets, meaning that if you got stuff moving on a boat in the ocean, it was probably made in China. Okay, and the boat was anyway. The U.S. doesn't like that because it's a threat to our ability to control the supply chain globally, right? So we came up with this idea. Actually started in the Biden administration, but the Trump administration has moved through with it. It's that basically, if you are a ship and you are made not in the U.S. and you show up at a U.S. port, you get charged a fee. And a lot of times that fee, I've seen estimates anywhere from like $1 to $3 million or something like that. It's a crazy fee. And that obviously goes straight, if we're going to charge these non-US made ships, that goes right in your shipping costs. So that means the cost of everything you ship goes up, whether that's backpacks or corn or soybeans or soybean meal or cars. Shipping costs go up, price to the consumer goes up. It's not necessarily something that we agree with, but we won't get into that. It's market intervention. We don't, as capitalists, we don't like that. Anyway, what happened Friday was the White House, the government got wind that China was going to respond to those port fees going in yesterday. Yesterday was the day port fees went in to effect in the U.S. And the Chinese responded to that by putting some controls on their rare earth minerals. Okay. And so all that to say that on Friday, we got a bunch of tweets, basically Truth Social posts that, criticized China. At one point, we're going to put 100% tariffs on all Chinese imports. And obviously Friday was a very, very bad day for the corn, bean, and stock market. Okay. Since then, some things have been smoothed over. Some headlines are better. Trump and Xi are still going to meet in November. But every market, really, except corn and beans, have recovered, right? Stock markets recovered. Bond markets recovered. U.S. dollars traded more steadily, but beans still stink, and corn not necessarily in the best spot either. So since then, U.S. trade representatives and Chinese trade representatives kind of gone back and forth on, we're going to fight this trade war till the end. I think the Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg quoted one Chinese representative, and our Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, has basically said the same thing. And he's going to, it's China versus the world, and we're going to fight this battle. And, it's just not very constructive. Now, could it be all positioning? Could it be positioning before this Trump-Xi meeting? Probably. The stock market would think so anyway. But again, for soybeans, time's already run out. We can't really afford more negative back and forth. And this meeting, quite frankly, can't happen soon enough. So, it's unfortunate that so much geopolitical positioning is impacting us at the worst possible time, harvest, right? Especially when we're selling beans across the scale to collect money to pay bills. You'd rather those beans be $11 cash than $9.50 cash. It's just terrible timing. But if we do get something done here in the next couple of weeks, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And if we don't, there's probably not light at the end of the tunnel. It's kind of a 50-50. It's a coin flip with soybeans. So it's unfortunate we keep talking about it. We're tired of writing about it, tired of talking about it, tired of watching the headlines go back and forth, especially this week. But it's the reality we live in. And at the end of the day, this China trade deal or not will have a huge impact on price direction of soybeans, probably for the next 6 to 12 months. So here we are.
Here we are. Reese Drenth is with the Ground Level Dispatch. We will have a link to a month free trial in the description of this podcast, wherever you're looking at it. Reese, if folks were to click on that and try a month out, what would they get?
Yeah, great question. They get something like we just talked about, but in a lot shorter form. We try to, keep things to a 3 to 5 minute read every morning and every night, and then do some longer winded editorial type stuff on the weekend. So give us a try. I'd love to have you.
Thanks so much, Reese, for joining us on Farm Here Daily.
You bet.
This is Farm Here Daily, and now we're going to take a look at the closing markets.
This episode is brought to you by Tic Tac. Your boss is going off at you for missing a deadline, and you swear the clock just moved backwards. Suddenly, you remember the pack of Tic Tacs on your desk. Now you're riding horseback on the beach, the smell of citrus in the air. And what's this? Your boss is sitting behind you, breathing heavenly fresh mint? Refresh your mouth and mind and share your good vibes with Tic Tac.
And at the close for Thursday, there was green across the board in grains. December corn, 5 cents higher, 4.21 3/4. March, 3 1/4 more at 4.35 1/2. Corn in May, 2 3/4 up at 4.43 3/4. Soybeans in November, 4 1/4 higher at 10.10 3/4, with January an increase of 4 1/4 at 10.28 1/2. Soybeans in March, 4 cents up at 10.43 3/4. Soybean meal in December, $1 a ton in the green, $276.90. Soybean oil in December, up 1/10 of a penny at $50.87 a pound. Wheat in December, 3 3/4 more at 5.02 1/2, with March rising 3 cents at 5.18 3/4. May up 2 1/4 at 5.29 1/2. Hard red winter wheat in December, half a penny up at 4.88 3/4, with March rising 1/4 cent at 5.09. December, an increase of 2 cents at 5.28 1/4. Looking into oats, there was a little bit of red there. As a quick note, penny and a half down, 2.91 1/2 for the December contract. In the livestock market, there is a bit more green there as well. December live cattle, $1.10 a hundredweight, stronger at 247.87. February rising 80 cents at 249.55. April live cattle, 67 cents up at 250.25. Feeder cattle in November, 27 cents a hundredweight in the green, $380.95, with January an increase of 70 cents at 378.55. March, $1.10 more at 376.70. Red in lean hogs, though, December lean hogs $1 a hundredweight weaker at $82.60. February down 60 cents at 85.10, with April falling 47 cents at 88.85. That is the Thursday market close. This is Farm Here Daily. This is Farm Here Daily, a Field Forward podcast. Thank you again so much for listening, and make sure to check out yesterday's program as well. Had a really great conversation with former Iowa Governor Tom Vilsack, now the CEO of the World Food Prize Foundation. Next week is the Borlaug Dialogue, and I'm hoping to spend some time talking with folks there as well, so we'll be looking forward to next week's programming here soon. And make sure you take a look at our podcast. We would love to have you join our community, so to do so, you can check out our social media at Field Forward Pod. You can go to fieldforwardmedia.com as well to see what we're doing there. You can also find me on social media at Geiger Reports. Again, I am your host, David Geiger, and I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody.